Are there any among you who are really wise and understanding? Then you should show your wisdom by living right. You should do what is good with humility. A wise person does not boast. If you are selfish and have bitter jealousy in your hearts, you have no reason to boast. Your boasting is a lie that hides the truth. That kind of wisdom does not come from God. That wisdom comes from the world. It is not spiritual, it is from the devil. Where there is jealousy and selfishness, there will be confusion and every kind of evil. But the wisdom that comes from God is like this. First, it is pure. It is also peaceful, gentle, and easy to please. This wisdom is always ready to help people who have trouble and to do good for others. This wisdom is always fair and honest. People who work for peace in a peaceful way get the blessings that come from right living. So let's talk about that scripture that I just read in James 3:13 through 18, which I took notes on, and the two types of wisdoms which James talks about. So as we know, according to scripture, that there's two forms of wisdom. There's biblical wisdom, and then there's worldly wisdom. Proverbs 9 tells us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of true wisdom, is the beginning of wisdom. True wisdom always begins with reverence and submission to God, not self. So the two sources of wisdom, according to James, is wisdom from above, which is godly wisdom, as James 3:17 characterizes this as pure, peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy, produces good fruit without hypocrisy. This wisdom leads to life, humility, peace, and obedience to God. And in James 1:5, it teaches us that any of us lack wisdom, let him ask of God. God freely gives wisdom to those who ask in faith. And then wisdom from below, which is worldly wisdom, which James 3:15 describes it as earthly, being rooted in the world system, fleshly, driven by self, pride, and emotions. And then it is also demonic, influenced by the deception of Satan. This wisdom, it often sounds smart, sounds logical or empowering, but it always leads us away from God. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God, as described in 1 Corinthians 3:19. So the question we must ask here is, does Satan have wisdom? Yes, he does. He does have wisdom, but he does not possess true wisdom, which can only be found in God. He possesses deception disguised as wisdom, as Genesis 3:1 mentions. Now the serpent was more cunning. Satan is cunning. And then in John 8:44, God describes Satan, he's a liar. He's the father of all lies. Worldly wisdom originates in rebellion and is energized by Satan, even if it looks harmless or reasonable. So, how do we discern which wisdom that we're actually following? Is when we have to ask ourselves these questions. Does this glorify God, or does this glorify self? Does it produce peace, or does it produce confusion? Does it align with scripture, or does it contradict scripture? Does it require humility, or does it feed pride? James 3:16 tells us, for where envy and self-seeking exists, confusion and every evil thing are there. So the final truth that we have to remember here is that there is wisdom from above, which is godly, and then there's wisdom from below, from the world, from the earth. One leads to life and one leads to deception. Romans 3:4 tells us, let God be true, but every man a liar. So there you have it. James 3 through 18 speaks on two types of wisdoms. Now, which wisdom will you go after? God bless.